Screen Slurps.
Hello and welcome to Screen Slurps, the movie review podcast where we discuss everything that is good, that is bad, and that is savage in the world of cinema. I'm Adam Meisner.
I'm Laura Herlocker. Sorry, I'm laughing because I just keep thinking I have a cat in my pants. It's a spoon. I promise it's a spoon. But why is it in my pants? See, this isn't a good way to start.
A cat spoon in your pants for drinking tea, of all things.
It's in a pocket of my pants. I didn't want it to clink against my mug while we're recording. Sorry.
Clinkety clank, cat spoon in the pants.
This episode's starting very chaotic, and I think it's just going to continue that way. So here we go.
This week's episode, we're talking about
cats in our pants.
Cats in our pants. No, we're talking about the film. It actually came out pretty recently. We're talking about the film Sooryavanshi, which, to my surprise, actually, I'm not surprised to say this first. Laura and I had no idea this was part of a whole series of films.
Yeah, because we probably would have watched the first one then.
Yeah, had we known that this was a part of a series of films, we would have started from the beginning. But this is actually the fourth film of a series of films. But we will get into that whole spectrum of films once we dive into the deeper meaning of all of that. But first, we will talk about our side slurps. That's right. Our side slurps are the things we've done other than watch the film of the week, which is Sooryavanshi. Other than watch the film of the week, our side slurps are things like watching TV shows, watching other movies. Maybe we were changing light bulbs. Maybe we were tap dancing. Maybe we were learning how to drive hover cars. Laura, what have you been up to this past week?
Lots of little random things, honestly. I mean, for TV shows, I feel like I've been watching a lot of different things. So I think I mentioned last week that I started watching New Girl. So I watched a few more episodes of that. You watched one with me, Adam, so that was fun. I've also been trying to finish Cheer, the docuseries on Netflix. And then, Adam, we also started season 2 of Love is Blind, which is...
Oh, man.
Wow. I don't even have words. It's not as good as first season, I will say. I think the couples are horrible. I don't like any of the people.
There's more couples, and I always wonder what happens to the couples that don't get engaged. Are they just in their pods, sitting there waiting for someone to walk in?
They just go home.
They're just sitting in the pods thinking to themselves, okay, is someone going to walk in here and propose to me? I've been talking for so long. Don't know who I'm talking to, but I'm taking notes. But
honestly, there's like no one person on this season that I like. I think they're all kind of horrible people.
A lot of them are jerks.
So yeah, we were watching that. Another thing we watched was the Super Bowl. That was last Sunday.
That's
big
true.
Deal. One of our friends had a party, so we went over to their place, with some other people, watched the Super Bowl. Halftime show was a lot of fun. Other than that, same things pretty much I've been doing, right? Like still playing Horizon Zero Dawn. I think I'm more than halfway through. I was looking at like quest lists today, and I think I'm getting there because the new one just came out. So I gotta get on it. Gotta get moving. Making crafts, using my little Cricut machine. I made some mugs, which is fun. And I'm still trying to finish my book club book, which is The School for Good Mothers. Kind of mentioned that last episode too. Very disturbing book, but good. I think once I'll finish it, I'll have a better idea of the whole thing. Yeah, like I said, a lot of little random things this week in my side slurps. I think that covers the bases, we'll say.
You got a lot more going on than I do this past week.
I mean, I just sit at home. I mean, I work, but like I work from home, so I think I have a little more time, and that's why I just do a bunch of little random things.
Well, my eyes have been set on the television set this past week. That's mainly my main thing that I've been slurping. Speaking of watching the television other than our main film, my main interest has been what has just come out, actually, the brand new Cuphead series, which I think is pretty interesting, actually, because I love the Cuphead video game. I wanted to see what they were going to do with this brand new series. And Laura and I both checked out the first episode of the Cuphead series. And I got to say, I'm pretty impressed with what they did here with it. And
it's very nostalgic.
Yeah, I think that's the main word that I would use is nostalgic. I think what they did with the brand new series is really a nice throwback to classic cartoon animation, and I gotta hand it to the producers for really sticking with what the video game developer was going for when they created the video game. I think.
You definitely get the same vibe as the game. Like, kind of at times, it's like that classic kind of like, I don't even know how to describe it, I guess, 50s-esque, but also kind of 20s with the music and kind of jazzy.
Yeah, really that classic hokey animation vibe, the classic Disney
think
style
of
animation.
The frog, the like, hello, my baby, hello, my honey. Like, that's what I think of. It's kind of in that realm, that style.
Yeah, my first thought is always the feeling you have when you watch something like Steamboat Willie or something like that. That kind of animation style. And not to say that watching it is like watching a Disney style cartoon, but it's just that era of cartoon, that look of that classic cartoon that you get when you watch the new Cuphead series. So it's nice. It's got that feeling, that look to it, even that vintage feeling and look that they were going for with the video game. They even brought that into the series now. So I like that. And I like it with the sound effects that they use, the visuals. There's even music in there. So it's really nice. And I would suggest checking it out. Definitely check it out. It's on Netflix now. And the episodes are a nice 15 minutes in length. So definitely worth watching. I also began playing some classic video games. They're on PlayStation Now on PS5. So I started replaying God of War. I haven't played that since PlayStation 2. So, wow, I'm happy to see that that's
on that, baby.
I'm happy that that's on PlayStation Now. Started playing. Yeah, the graphics haven't changed one bit. So
it's definitely PlayStation 2.
But it is so much fun. Happy to be playing.
But it's
God of War
exciting
again.
to play that one and then the new one, right? Like we should get that, and so we can kind of compare and see like the visuals between them.
Yeah, I want to go through all of the God of War games though. So I started playing God of War 1, like PlayStation 2 God of War, and I want to go through that all the way up to where they are now.
What's the new one? Is that like 4 or 5?
I think it's just called God of War.
I know, but like how many versions of it have there been?
I think this is the 4th or 5th one.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll have to do my research.
I mean, I have no idea. That's why I was asking. Yeah. So, because the new one, right, is like Valhalla. Isn't it like the Viking gods? Very similar to the latest Assassin's Creed Valhalla, which I don't want to talk about because I don't like it. But I think, the new one's Ragnarok, which is Vikings.
But we'll get into that once I get that far. It makes me feel like an old man now, looking back on those PlayStation 2 style graphics. Makes me feel like an Elder Scroll.
What was your favorite PlayStation 2 game?
Favorite PlayStation 2 game? I played Oblivion all the time.
I don't even know what that is.
I just made the Elder Scroll joke. I said it makes me feel like an Elder Scroll. Video game jokes.
One of my favorite PS2 games was Lara Croft Tomb Raider. But I'm horrible at video games, so I just do the opening tutorial where you have like the obstacle course in our house. I just play that like over and over again.
I was going to say, you don't even know what Oblivion is? That was pre-Skyrim.
I don't. It's by the same company?
Yeah.
I have no idea what Oblivion is. I didn't know what Skyrim was before I met you.
That makes me really sad.
But that just shows the impact you've had on my life.
Okay. And that's what I've been up to this past week. That's what I've been slurping. So
I can just tell when you're done with me sometimes. You're like, all right, moving on.
All right.
That's it.
So, listener, let's talk all about what we slurped this past week. The film, the Bollywood film that just came out this past year, 2021, Sooryavanshi. And I'm really excited to talk about this movie because Laura and I love watching Bollywood movies. We don't watch enough of them. I gotta be honest here.
I agree. We need to watch more.
So I'm really excited to talk about this. This week's film, Sooryavanshi, released November 5th, 2021, directed by Rohit Shetty, screenplay by, and I apologize for mispronunciations here, screenplay by Yunus Sajawal, story by Rohit Shetty. And this is where I find this fascinating. So but we usually save the reviews for later, and I will talk about them again later. But the reviews for this movie were pretty mixed in the sense that critics, for the most part, gave this movie pretty sloppy reviews. It was pretty low key in a lot of ways. And audience reviews for this movie, for the most part, a lot of audience reviews were kind of like, oh yeah, it's pretty good.
It's like, so it's an action movie, as I'm sure we'll get into, but I feel like in like Hollywood movies, it would equate to like a Die Hard, right?
Sure.
Like an action film that's not critically acclaimed. It's, it's not great, but audiences love it. Like I will go watch a million Die Hard movies, but it's not a good movie, But to go off of that, saying, critics, not so much an enjoyment, audience would say, oh, yeah, I would recommend this. To go off of that, I was very surprised to see that the budget for this film was around 160 crore, box office around 294.17 crore. So like a little less than double, right?
Yeah.
But you have to, the lockdown in India was much more strict than it was here in the US. So I think that definitely lends a hand to why its box office numbers weren't so high. Like I said, the lockdowns in India were a lot more strict than ours. So a lot of people probably just weren't able to go to the movies.
No, I mean, this is saying at box office like twice as much.
But that's not that much.
Well, if you look at American cinema, the box office is usually not even over the budget. The box office is like half.
So maybe, I haven't looked.
Much less.
Maybe this movie came out like when lockdowns were getting lessened, right? So then people were finally able to go out and they were like, let's go to the movies.
If you look at American movies now, it'll be like budget of like 16 mil or something like that. And the box office will be like 4 mil.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's just, we've talked about this before and we kind of just mentioned it now. I think that's so much to do with COVID, though. And even before COVID, we were seeing this like trend to more like digitally released movies, right? I mean, Roma was up. That was before COVID, wasn't it? That won Best Picture, and that was only released on Netflix. Mm-hmm. Like, I feel like even before COVID, we're seeing this trend where movies are being released on streaming services versus actually being in theaters. So we're already seeing like a downtick in box office numbers. And then with COVID and with people being at home, like we've just seen that substantially change and transition.
That was my point, is that, with American cinema, the budget would be some relatively high budget. Box office would be practically nothing. With this film, we have this budget number of 160 crore. They box officed about double their budget. Yeah.
It came out on Diwali, too, which is like a holiday. So maybe it was just everyone was like, let's go to the movies.
I think that's why, they do Christmas releases in America.
And I mean, it does have a good cast. Like Akshay Kumar he's a good actor.
Yeah, absolutely. The film stars, I got a few names here: Akshay Kumar, Katrina Kaif, Jackie Shroff, and many more. I mean, many
it's
more.
A big cast.
And just to put out the film summary real quick, a Mumbai cop pulls out all the stops to ensure the conspiracy that is about to attack his city is intercepted. That is a very
concise,
very concise summary. But a summary nonetheless.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good, concise summary of what happens. I mean, obviously, there's lots that happen within him trying to intervene, which is why the movie, we get our lovely long Bollywood movies. But which is something, it's funny. Like I equated this to something like Die Hard, right? Which I still agree with. And we even talked about this when we were watching the movie, that the difference with action films such as this one, Sooryavanshi, is that like we get backstory, right? So we get like 2 whole long scenes with musical numbers about his romance with his wife and how they met and, you know, what happened with their son and things like that, which adds all this depth to the plot and the characters themselves. Whereas in an American film, like in Die Hard, him and his wife are separated in Die Hard. We don't get any of that backstory, though. It's just comes in, you know, they're separated. We're made to assume, you know, and create our own backstory. And I think that's something that's so interesting with Bollywood movies, is that I think because they're longer, they're able to have such like more in-depth character development and storytelling.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. I 100% agree with that. And I wanted to ask, because generally speaking, from our experience watching many American films in comparison to Bollywood films, as you were saying with Die Hard in comparison to this film, Sooryavanshi, I would say with Bollywood films, from the experience, Laura and I have not watched enough Bollywood films.
Pretty much what we've reviewed on the podcast are the ones that we've watched. That's our
experience for
We're
the most
trying
part.
to get better.
However, from my experience, I would say, from watching American films in comparison to Bollywood films, I would say Bollywood films seem to have more surprises that catch me off guard and make for a better viewing experience. With that being said, do you think that the introduction to Sooryavansh's character, did that catch you at all by surprise for this being an action film? And I ask that because IMDb lists this film as an action crime thriller, though I think it should also be listed as a comedy.
I mean, yeah, there's definitely some snarkiness to it, right? Like they add in some laughs, like how he can't remember anyone's names and he always calls them random things. It's only got some snarky lines in there.
Sooryavansh's character, he's introduced like he's this badass, and he is. However, he is this badass cop, police officer, agent who can one-shot everybody with a gun. He's got perfect aim for the most part. He can just take everyone down. At the same time, he can take everyone down with his gang of fellow officers.
Oh, I love that.
All who have mustaches.
I didn't get what you were trying to ask when you were saying introduction. I get it now. The ragtag team of anti-terrorist squad.
The ragtag team... Terror Squad, all who have mustaches.
Okay, but like they're so different, right? Like there's the short, pudgy one, and then there's the really tall, buff, like bodybuilder one, and then there's Soorya. They call him Soorya, like shortens for Sooryavanshi, right? His character, he's also kind of like fit. I just love the short, pudgy one.
Sooryavanshi can't remember anyone's name.
Yeah, he has a disease.
He has a disease where he can't remember anybody's name. And that's a huge part of the movie.
I think and its comedic elements. They had to have those comedic elements, though, because the plot of this movie is quite intense, right? Like it can be really dark, and you know, whatever, which we can talk about later. So I think they needed to have those kind of comedic elements in there to lighten the movie and keep it moving along.
I think when I was watching this movie, I think it was those comedic elements that made me even more interested in watching the movie. Yeah. Because looking over some of the reviews that I saw after watching the movie, some of the people were saying that they gave it a lesser rating because they thought the comedic elements were juvenile
but it makes him like more likable as a character.
Yeah, I think it makes him more relatable.
Yeah. I mean, otherwise he would be like a dick. Like he almost gets his son killed. He is, you know, forgets about his wife. Like he can't remember anyone's names. Like that's very assholey. But you know, they make it.
It's not intentional though. It's
right,
just,
but you know, is it? But you know what? I feel like those comedic elements are used to make him a likable character, and so you do root for him.
At first, it seems like it is intentional in his character because when he first gets introduced, it's kind of like, oh, yeah, hey, you know, Andrew. And it's like, my name's Steve.
Andrew, like you're saying. Sooryavanshi, it seems like it's just him being lazy. I mean, that's even what his wife says, right? She's like, you just can't remember names because you're lazy. And then he
calls her Dr. Hernia.
Dr. Malaria.
Dr. Malaria and Dr. Hernia.
But we meet another character later on who has the same name disease. So, give some cred to Surya.
And he explains it to Dr. Hernia that it is a problem.
Aria.
I thought that was funny that he called her Dr.
That's
Hernia.
one of those comedic elements that they added in. But Ria, his wife.
Yeah, I thought it was honestly funny that he was calling her that. And she told him numerous times that her name was Ria and still ended up marrying him. I think that's just funny. It's like, even after he called her Dr. Malaria, Dr. Hernia, she's like, okay, I'll marry you.
Because he's got that nice body.
That's the excuse for everybody, right? Like, okay, you look good.
Speaking of their relationship, though, the like flashback scenes were some of my... I mean, I love like romantic things, so it makes sense that those flashback scenes were like some of my favorite. But the scene where they're celebrating their anniversary and he takes her to that like abandoned fair and they have that whole dance number in the rain, I was loving that.
As if it relates to Cuphead that I was watching this past week. It's going to turn into the carnival. Ha 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 ha. You don't think I'm funny? Anyways. No,
but I loved that scene. And it was choreographed by Farah Khan, who I love, from Om Shanti.
Okay, that's another thing. The choreography of the dancing good. There wasn't that much music in this movie in terms of music that they were singing. There was plenty of music as in background
but
music,
actual
singing,
numbers.
Actual choreographed numbers of dancing
like
and singing.
Right?
Yeah, I think there was only 2.
And then the end credits. I think that was it.
But the ones that were in there, the singing and the dancing, that was really good. That was some good dancing. It
always is. Like, there has to be a Bollywood movie out there where the numbers aren't good. But
we'll find it.
Yeah.
And if we don't, please let us know.
I just
listeners,
feel like all
suggest
the ones
it to
we've
us.
seen are just so good all the time. There were just some others, as we're talking about funny scenes, I guess there's some other ones too that just like, it's an action movie. Things are over exaggerated and super crazy, right? But like the scene where he's hanging off a helicopter and just like yanks the baddie off of this like water ski, things like that where I'm just like,
how did he not fall off the helicopter? And how did the bad guy
carry him, like pick him up with one hand? Did you know? Speaking of that, Akshay Kumar, he did all his own stunts. So like that was him like hanging off of the helicopter. Yeah, he did his own stunts in this movie.
It's pretty impressive.
I think so. I mean, I'm sure there was like wires holding up the guy he was holding. He wasn't actually carrying him. He had assistants. But at the same time, like he did do his own stunts. So what about that one scene where he like flips and rolls as that car's being like exploded behind him? Like that was him? That's cool.
Or when he spider flies off the top of a building.
Oh, yeah. The parkour in the beginning where it's like slow motion jumping and it's like whoosh. He like floats down.
Almost like the Master of Disguise dress float.
Yeah.
My
Definitely
Lord.
Some stylized action scenes in this movie, for sure.
There are some things to think about. We didn't even mention the timed gunshots going along with the music.
Yeah, I guess we could bring that up since we already talked about like the musical numbers.
Yeah, the gunshots were actually going along with the music.
It was so good.
It was really weird to think about, though, when the action scenes would happen. Not all gunshots were timed, but for the most part, they really had the gunshots edited to sequence with the music.
It had a good flow. Yeah,
it had a rhythm to it that you'd hear the gunshots just timed like drum beats going just like.
And not even the shots themselves, but also like the whizzing noise it'd make when it hit people.
Yeah.
Like it was all like timed so perfectly to like fit with the score that was happening in the background. I mean, on top of that, too, the use of like sirens and kind of those police noises happening during the songs also I thought was great. Like, his theme song when he first gets introduced and it's like, Sooryavanshi. And then we get those sirens and it's like, wee, wee, woo, woo.
Yeah. They have some interesting use of sound design in
loved
this. And yeah, I love it, too. It's really inspiring, I think, for for myself, if I direct a film in the future, I would love to just tell whoever would be sound designing on that, just be like, listen,
this is what I want.
We need some just ridiculous theme going. Just like it immediately made me think of the Doom series because it did.
Yeah, I mean, they're both
it.
like Bollywood action. Similar genre.
I also loved later in the film when they brought in Simba and
my God,
Singram. Because Singram was literally unstoppable, and everyone loves Singham.
Singham. I was about to say, I think it's Singham, actually. I said
Simba and Singham. Mm-hmm. Because Singham's got to be loved by everybody. If he's not, again, listener, let us know. Singham has to be loved by everybody because this whole movie is part of a series, as we said. And Singham has also got an animated series.
Tons of them.
Tons of them.
Yeah. No, so that scene at the end when Simba and Singham like finally show up, that's when Adam and I realized, like, wait a minute, this is part of a series. Because we didn't know these characters, right? Like, we haven't seen their movies. But they're coming in and you can tell they're already like established characters.
Yeah.
So we were like, oh, wait. We got some other movies that we need to watch.
Exactly.
But that whole end scene. So we're talking
about... The tiger noise was Singham. That's what got me.
Oh, yeah. I was about to talk about just like the ridiculousness of action movies, right? Like I already talked about the idea of him hanging off a helicopter and grabbing a man. That final shootout scene at the ATS headquarters.
Oh, yes.
Is just so ridiculous. Like, how many times during the movie did they say that there were 40 sleeper cells, right? The bad guys had 40 sleeper cells in India. I think
there was like 100.
And then,
more.
Yeah, I was gonna say the shootout at the ATS headquarters at the end, they killed way more than 40 people. Like, that scene lasted a long time.
Yeah.
They were blowing up people left and right. That was way more than 40 sleeper cells.
I think that was longer than the Heat scene.
Oh, yeah, I don't know. I would rather watch this one, though, than the Heat scene. Listener, if you haven't watched it, Heat, there's a very long shootout sequence in, like, the beginning of the movie, right?
No, I think it's around, like, the middle.
But it's long. And it's loud. I'm like, in this movie, that shootout scene very similar, but not as loud.
Yeah, if you haven't seen the film Heat, directed by Michael Mann, definitely check out the shootout scene. I believe it's about 10 minutes long.
It's so long.
But very popular scene. Definitely.
I wonder how long the one in this movie was. It was also long. Because you get shots of like the three of them, you know, Sooryavanshi, Simba, and Singham. You get shots of them individually killing people. You get them together killing people. Then you had them trying to like defuse the bomb that's on Rhea, which we haven't even talked about. You know, like it's a long scene.
Yeah.
It's probably 10 minutes at least, probably.
Yeah, if not longer than that.
I say around there. And it's at the very end, though. That's like the bam.
Yeah, and it just goes on and on and on.
Well, because even when you think it's done, right? Like the baddies, the brothers are like surrendered kind of. They start fighting him again.
Yeah.
And so you get a whole nother fight scene once you think it's over.
But then what really blew my mind, and I don't say like, wow, blew my mind, the most amazing thing. I'm just saying what really just it just sort of amazed me that it was even in there at all was just the fact that Singham is there like, all right, now this is done. The three bad guys, they should surrender. And I guess this goes off what you were just saying. The three guys are in there. They should have been done. They should have surrendered. Then Singham takes apart his gun, sets it on the table, and then decides, all right, well, I guess I'm going to fight you with my bare hands. And he does. He fights them with his bare hands, and all three of them can't defeat him, even when he's unarmed. And even when they are beating him up, they are punching him. They are kicking him.
It looks like the hits don't even phase him.
Yeah, they don't
like,
phase him at all.
He gets whacked over the back with like a chair.
Yeah, he gets hit with a chair.
And he just looks at the guy like.
Yeah, he looks at him like, you just
kidding?
hit me? Yeah. He is just.
And he's like holding two men down just like by holding their necks.
He cannot be defeated. And then final hit, he just like, leaps in the air and you hear the tiger noise just like. Rawr! Like he's a pro wrestler, basically. He's like, wow.
It is very pro wrestlery at parts. I will say that. Yeah, that's very true.
I just want to have that sound effect on cue of a button for myself when I'm doing regular activities in life. I can walk around.
I think Simba's character was like way funnier, and he like the skinny guy with the fancy like French villain mustache. I want to watch his movie too. Like Simba looks like it would be funny.
My reaction immediately when he was introduced, I looked over and my first thought was, is this supposed to be like Reno 911?
Yeah, very much so.
It went from being a serious sort of comedy action film to, is this supposed to be like a super comedy?
Yeah, like what is this? We definitely need to find the one is on Netflix. Singham is on Netflix, but we'll have to find Simba somewhere else probably.
Yeah.
It was fun, though. I'm sure, like, people who've seen the other movies in the franchise and the series, like, when those two show up on screen, it was probably like, you know, can you just imagine in the theater, people watching it when, you know, they don't expect it, but then, like, Simba and Singham show up. Everyone was probably like, yeah.
Probably, yeah. Because I think Simba's movie was the last one. In the post credits, they sort of announced that they were going to make Sooryavanshi
character. Yeah, they're all kind of connected.
Yeah.
No, I think so too. I don't know. We got to watch them. I will say the plot for an action movie was, I think, maybe a bit too complicated at times. So like in the beginning, when they were trying to explain everything, I remember I looked at you and I was like, I have no idea what's going on. Like, what is happening? And I think, I mean, part of that too, obviously, is that you and I do not have any knowledge really of like India, history of India, you know, things like that. So maybe, you know, them explaining like bombings and what was happening in different like factions and things like that, and them going to Pakistan. Like, I think if you have an understanding of the history, it would make more sense to you. But like I said, for me, like an outsider watching, I definitely took a moment to try to understand exactly what's happening. Like, who are the villains? Why are they the villains? It was, for an action movie, it's very complicated. But, you know, as Bollywood, things are always a little more extensive and complicated, right? So I guess it made sense. But it just, like I said, it just took me a while to kind of get into it and be like, okay, this is what's happening. Yeah,
I mean, with the introduction, it was basically telling me that there was this bombing that happened in Mumbai in 93. And then I was really trying to wrap my head around who was the one that had created this bombing or had done this bombing.
Yeah.
And who are all of the members of the family that did this bombing? Why exactly did the bombing happen? And who am I really rooting for?
Yeah, I was going to say that's part of the complication, too, is just that there were so many characters involved in that beginning setup, right? You have Bilal, who's the man who had the bombs. Then you have Usmani, who's like the priest. And then you have Omar, who's the guy that went to Pakistan. And then you have his two sons who like are also involved. You know, it's just like there were all of these characters involved that each had one little part in this whole conflict. And it's like, how do they connect? Like,
yeah.
What is, you know, like, who's who?
Exactly.
Right. And then, you know, and even on the good guy side, well, it was mostly focused on Sooryavanshi, and then the other people in the squad were just kind of like fun side characters. Mm-hmm. But so that wasn't as confusing. You got that one. But yeah, on the baddie side, there was just a lot of people to try and like piece together in your brain and understand like who's doing what. But it did clarify itself as the movie moved on, and the, you know, like the focus became more so on like the son, the eyebrow guy.
Oh, yeah.
The thick eyebrows, right? Like he kind of became the leader of the baddies in India. And the, you know, his dad kind of was just like no longer really a main focus of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of clarified itself out. But like I said, just a lot of pieces to have to put together and understand.
Yeah. And as we get closer to the end, they try to figure out, you know, where is all of the the RKG or RKJ.
I know. I was trying to remember what it was called. I just called it the bomb stuff.
Yeah, the bomb stuff.
The bomb stuff.
I'm got to get my alphabet together here.
RDX.
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 I'm going to get, I've got a whole alphabet of bomb names in my head. RKJ, RKG, AKJ, AKG.
RDX is the stuff that they had.
RDX. So RDX, which they were using for bomb making, they figure out where they can get that out of this house.
The bad guys,
the bad guys, they get it out of the house. And another guy sees them in the house, or sees one of them in the house, and sort of tries to welcome himself up there and introduce himself, see if he can go inside, but he can't. And he kind of explains to Sooryavanshi later, like, oh yeah, I saw this guy at this house, and there's more people in there too, and I can't remember his name. I've got this problem where I forget everybody's names all the time, and it becomes one of those nice jokes of the movie where it's like, ha 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 ha, Sooryavanshi can't remember anyone's names either. Yeah.
Well, we also can't remember names because all of the baddies had two names. They had their real names, and then they had like their sleeper cell names.
Yeah.
So it was just very confusing. like I said, if you had to see them, once I saw their faces, I was like, oh, it's that guy.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I'm like, I don't know who they're talking about right now.
And as they figure out where they are in their hideout, at that point in the film, it's too late for Sooryavanshi to actually go to their hideout. He realizes, oh, I can't make it there on time. I'll have to have the bomb squad go over here and try and get the cars that they're going to be putting these bombs onto. So by that point in time, they finally figure out where to find them and try and get these cars with these bombs out of the way before they blow up an entire city with cars with bombs on them that go off in 5-minute increments.
Yeah. No, so it was Singham, right, that figured out the locations. I think that's when his character came in, and he like interrogated or caught the one guy, the missing fingers guy, right? And that's when he learned that there's like 7 bombs throughout the city set to go off, plus the attack like on the ATS headquarters. So they run around and find the 7 bombs and then lift them out with helicopters and just drop them in the water.
Yep. Except for Sooryavanshi, who drove one into a...
oh, yeah. That was a very cool scene, right? Yeah. Where he like jumps out of the moving car and then it blows up behind him.
Yeah. And he also had to rescue his wife, who had a bomb vest strapped on her.
Yeah. There's lots of things happening in this movie.
Yeah. Yeah, all very strange, unexpected things. Lots of bombs.
I mean, it's an action movie.
It's an action movie.
If you want something to just watch and have fun, there you go. You know, like that's what it is. And I mean, I do want to mention, Adam, I think this is something we'll just mention because I don't want it to make it seem like we're avoiding it or unaware of it. Like there definitely are some problems with this movie, as in, you know, the villains and how they are a specific religious community. So it kind of puts a bad light on a group of people. And, you know, some feel that this movie is very like nationalist and anti that group of people. I know that's a big thing with this movie right now that people are talking about. I think you and I, though, we just aren't focusing on that because, number one, we are not educated on that at all, you know, being American and not having an understanding of like what's happening really on that side of the world. I just wanted to say that so listeners didn't think we were totally oblivious.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
We just don't know how to talk about it.
Yeah, I don't know what to say in terms of that light with this movie. And I know the end of this film has the characters coming together, and there's even a song that accompanies the scene as these bombs are collected all over the city. As Laura and I were just saying, with the bomb squad coming in to pick up the cars with helicopters and things like that. And, you know, the police officers are going around telling everyone, you know, you have to get out of here or you're all going to blow up. So they have people coming together from multiple sides to pick up the statue of Ganesha, moving that out of where it would be blown up by a bomb to safety. And they have music accompanying this so that it's understood that no matter what religion you are, no matter whatever you are, we're all people. We're all diversity acceptance, basically, is what they're trying to say at the end of the movie.
Yeah. I think what they say throughout the movie, right, is like, the police aren't judging you based on your religion. We're judging you based on your record, right? Your criminal record. But at the same time, like, there is a lot of nationalist kind of propaganda happening on the one hand and anti this other collective group of people on the other hand. So, I do understand why a lot of people are upset. And, I read some articles about it. I get where it's coming from. But, the movie does try to say, like,
let's all come together.
Yeah, we're all Indians. This is what we are. Yeah, like I said, we don't have the knowledge really to talk about it or the understanding. So we're not going to focus on that. We're focusing on the action sequences.
So let's move forward with that. And let's move forward to some of the reviews of this movie. And to start us off in the generalization of reviews, Rotten Tomatoes has, as I said earlier, a 30% critic rating and an 83% audience rating of Sooryavanshi. Laura, why would the critics think so low and why would the audience think so high?
I mean, it doesn't have it has a plot, but you know what I mean? It's not like it's an action movie. It doesn't need to have one, right? Like, you blow shit up. That's, what the movie is, right? And I think it's a lot of fluff around blowing stuff up. And so the critics don't like that. They don't want fluff. They want real stuff. And so I think that's why critic score is so low. But audiences, we love to watch stuff get blown up. Like, that's what we want. Look at how many action films there are in the Hollywood world that are not critically acclaimed, but people love, such as Die Hard, which you've already talked about. Any movie like Die Hard. I mean,
it's a Baz Luhrmann action film. Like, why are you hating on it so much, critics?
But I get why critic score is so low and audiences is so high. It's exactly that same thing, I think.
I mean, that statement I just made is a generalization. Baz Luhrmann did not make this film.
No, well, Baz Luhrmann is very influenced by Bollywood movies. So really, it's Baz is ripping off this. So,
but yes, I mean, again, and also if you haven't seen any movie made by Baz Luhrmann, check out Baz Luhrmann. Anyways, yeah, I mean,
this movie was made to make people happy watching stuff. It's an action movie. That's what it was made for. People love it, but it's not going to win best film. You know what I mean? It's not critically acclaimed, whatever.
Yeah. And it's part of a series. And I think that's where the audience rating comes in. It's kind of like, you see Singham, you like Singham, cool. You watch Singham 2. You like Singham 2, cool. You're going to watch the movie with Simba in it. You like Simba.
Yeah.
Then
right here, I just found like a really good sentence review that kind of like wraps up exactly what I'm trying to say. And this is from the Hindustan Times. So it says, Sooryavanshi isn't driven by a great script. Neither does it have any extraordinary suspense that could bring nail-biting moments. Yet, it keeps you on the edge for the sheer joy of watching that over-the-top action. And that's what it is. I mean, look at everything we've talked about during our review. It's those, like, big action scenes. That's what you remember. That's, like, the big parts of the movie, plus the dance scene in the rain, which is very romantic.
Hey, who doesn't want to get wet at a carnival and just dance around with your lover?
I mean, I'd be happy. Let's go do that, Adam. It's too cold here right now.
All right. It's not raining. It's snowing. Raining. It's icy. You might freezing. Slip and hurt yourself, but
let's wait until June.
Check the weather and we'll see what we can plan for. That being said, it's time for our slurps up or slurps down. Listener, if this is your first time listening, Slurps Up means that we recommend the movie wholeheartedly. We think you should check it out, and we think that it's a good one to be watching. Slurps Down means the opposite. It means that we think this film is garbage. We think it's trash. We think that it's awful, and we think that you should never, ever watch this movie. Laura, Slurps Up or Slurps Down? I'm
going to be a bit controversial. I actually am going to give this a Slurps Down. I think it has great fun scenes. I mean, I like Akshay Kumar, but like overall, this is just another in a long line of action films that are literally just created to blow stuff up. And like, as we said, we haven't seen a whole lot of Bollywood movies. We need to get there, but I'm sure there are plenty of action films that are more worth watching than this one, you know? Like, the only other ones we have that we can really compare it to is Doom. And I would rather watch Doom, right? It's because it's just, there's nothing like crazy in the plot. There's nothing like drastically different that I feel like makes this stand apart from other action films, even compared to like Hollywood action films. So yeah, I'm going to be maybe a little controversial and I'm going to say Slurps down. I think there's other things you could watch.
Wah, wah.
I know. I feel like I'm trying to be more critical because I think generally I would have just been like, oh yeah, Slurps up, like just go watch it. But I'm trying to be more critical about my reviews on things. And yeah, I'm going to stand with Slurps down. What about you?
I'm going to also give this one a Slurps down. You know, I think that this movie has some generally good moments. I think the movie has some generally good humor, some nice action scenes, but I think there could be some better moments in some other films. And if I had to pick out of a batch of Bollywood movies to watch, I don't think this would be the first one I would pick. And I think that's really my greatest.
It's hard to give movies Slurp down sometimes, but like, it's a hard decision.
Yeah, I think that's really just the main thing is if you had to pick a movie and you're going to choose what to watch, I don't think this would be the first one to go to. I mean, if you have a choice, really, I don't think this is the one that you need to be watching. When you could choose between this and one of the other Singham films, perhaps go to the first Singham film before you go to this one, because there are some moments in this film that are entertaining. However, when you have to watch this entire film for 2.5 hours, I don't think you need to put in that much time for this film. With that being said, that wraps it up for this episode of Screen Slurps. Be sure to follow us on social media at Screen Slurps on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok. And be sure to listen to us on Spotify, Ghana, or just about any other podcast streaming service out there. And if you enjoy what you hear, slide on over to Apple Podcasts and give us a 5-star rating. It will help us a lot. And if there's any crazy movies you want to hear about, let us know. Leave a comment on one of our social media pages, and trust me when I say we will be sure to talk about it. So closing out, I'm Adam Meisner.
I'm Laura Herlocker.
Slurps up, and we will catch you later.
Later.